4 generations of one family. Their lives and causes reveal 150 years of American history. March 1861. Charles Francis Adams of Boston, Massachusetts, son and grandson of Presidents of the United States, is serving a second term in Congress. A Congress which, like the nation itself, is on the brink of dissolution.
Morning, Mr. Adams.
The newly elected President, Abraham Lincoln, offers an olive branch to the rebellious southern states, but makes it clear he will not acquiesce in their secession.
What a strange place to discover one's fate.
It was an enormous parade. 2 companies at least. I saw them lined up near the Common late in the afternoon. The uniforms are absolutely dashing.
I may have to wear one of those dashing uniforms myself pretty soon.
Don't be ridiculous, Henry.
Mother, if there's a war...
I do not wish to hear any more talk about war and uniforms at the breakfast table.
Good morning.
Good morning, Father.
Good morning.
Hey, where's Charles?
He had to leave early. He had a business appointment.
Too bad. I was hoping that all of you would be here. There's something concerning all of us in this morning's newspaper. Yes, a telegraphic dispatch announcing that I was nominated yesterday by the president as minister to Great Britain.
Oh, congratulations, Father.
It seems that I'm the 3rd in my family in lineal descent upon whom this great honor has been conferred. The dispatch notes that it's unprecedented in American annals.
I think it is a disaster.
Oh, Mother.
Going to London, perhaps for years, the family separated, away from friends, it's unbearable.
Well, there are personal problems, yes.
Would we all be separated, Father?
Not necessarily. No, you could all come with us. Or at least make long visits.
I could go to school there, I suppose. Though I hear they're very strict.
Won't do you any harm, Mary.
Mary? If you're finished with your breakfast, I would like to talk with your father. I'm sorry. Took me by surprise.
Well, I, too, am rather amazed. After my last talk with Mr. Siebert, I thought London out of the question, but now that it's happened, it's rather flattering.
There is, I'm sure you realize, an element of exile in this appointment.
I don't think so, Abby. I know that Congress is an effective base for initiating useful legislation, and London is a long way from Washington.
Exactly. You've had so much recognition the past few years. And the family's together. Everything's against accepting this appointment.
Except that I have been nominated by the president.
You won't refuse it, then?
Well, I've always contented myself with submission to a higher law than my own will. Mr. Lincoln has selected me as his minister in London. We shall therefore go to London.
Good day, Mr. President. You know Mr. Adams.
How are you, Mr. Adams?
Very well, sir. I should like to express my gratitude upon my appointment as Minister to Great Britain and my appreciation for your faith in me.
That's very kind of you, Mr. Adams, but you're not my choice. You're Secretary of State Seward's man.
I hope I shall be able to carry out your instructions in the highest traditions of the...
I'm sure you will. And, Seward, I've also settled the Chicago post office appointment.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, if there's nothing further,
No, Mr. President.
good day, then.
Good day, Mr. President.
Good day, Mr. President.
Well, that was short and to the point.
Yes. I was hoping for something more, well, some specific instructions. He was quite casual, wasn't he? Almost indifferent.
The man who sits in that office hasn't much time for conversation.
I know a little about that office and the men who sit there.
Yes, you know the complexities of the problem then.
So I also know that unless the right decisions are made, and made promptly, we shall soon find ourselves engaged in a civil war.
Quite right. And should that come about, it'll be your responsibility to make sure that the British Empire remains, at the very least, neutral.
That might be very difficult.
That's why you've been chosen for this post.
I suppose it's petty of me, but those are the words I had hoped to have heard from the president. Well, I shall do my best to meet your expectations, but should I fail, I shall expect an immediate recall.
Oh, you won't fail, Mr. Adams.
Are you going to sit all day with your nose in that book?
Father's asked me to read this.
Crowley's History of England. You could take a turn around the deck with me.
Perhaps later. I have some other material to go over.
Well, aren't we important? His father appointed us as private secretary.
Oh, good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Father.
Your mother's been looking for you. She and Brooks are watching a school of dolphins sporting off the port bow.
Oh, very well. I'll leave the gentlemen to more important business.
How do you like Macaulay?
Dry but reliable.
That's very well put. I've been going over some confidential reports concerning the Prime Minister and his Foreign Secretary. Palmerston offers rather barren ground. He's been antagonistic towards the United States all through his public life.
Now, what about Lord John Russell?
Well, we really don't know too much about him. He'll be loyal to his Prime Minister, of course, but he's always expressed an aversion towards slavery. And he's fought on the right side of many unpopular causes.
Sounds promising.
Yes, this report also notes that he's a rather cold, aloof individual.
Men in public life often get that reputation undeservedly.
Come, let's take a turn around the deck. You've plenty of time for Macaulay. Racing, isn't it?
Mr. Adams! Mr. Adams!
Excuse me, sir.
Mr. Adams!
Diplomatic.
Benjamin Moran! Assistant Secretary of Legation!
Oh, yes, of course, Mr. Moran. This is Mrs. Adams and sons at home, sir.
How do you do,
Brooks,
Mr.
our daughter Mary, and son Henry.
Welcome to the British Isles, Mrs. Adams! Right this way, have a carriage waiting.
Oh, Kevin,
Oh, Moulton! See to Mr. Adams' luggage.
Beg your pardon,
Children can ride up front. Yes, I hope you had a pleasant voyage.
Oh, yes, it was good. Very quiet and good weather.
Well, we had rather a blow while you were on the way. Queen Victoria issued a proclamation of neutrality, granting belligerent rights to the Confederacy.
That's incredible.
Well, it's a dangerous sign, but at least it's not a recognition of the independence of the Confederacy.
It's a very small step short of that. And the South will now be convinced that recognition will come now as a matter of course.
I'm sorry to greet you with bad news, sir.
Well, bad beginnings often make for good endings, Mr. Moran.
Sir.
Made an analysis of all the press reports and official publications, and it seems to me that the proclamation of neutrality is based principally on two things. One, that Jefferson Davis, as president of the Confederacy, has announced his intention to issue letters of marque for privateering. And two, Lincoln then proclaimed the blockade of southern ports. Now, these two actions have put England and the government here in a dilemma. If she treats Confederate privateers as pirates...
They are pirates.
If she treats them as pirates, she would be taking an active part in the struggle.
Well, the point is that the South is not a maritime state. So far, not one privateer has appeared on the ocean, but still, we receive this proclamation of neutrality.
Do you think, then, that England is acting from some deep-seated disposition toward the Confederacy?
Or a deep-seated antagonism toward the Union?
I don't know. I've been given two general instructions. English offers of mediation or compromise are not to be entertained, and any recognition of the independence of the Confederacy is to be regarded as an unfriendly act. aimed at destroying our nation. I must see Lord John Russell immediately.
Well, his brother's been taken ill, but it will be arranged as soon as possible after your presentation to the Queen.
Aren't you ready yet, Charles?
Not quite. This is the largest I can find. I'm coming out now. Well?
It's different. You have a very nice leg. Stop that, Mary.
Sorry, Mother.
Brooks?
I agree with Mother. I thought the leg.
Sir.
Oh, good Lord. Did my predecessors dress up like this to be presented to the Queen?
No, sir. Both Mr. Dallas and Mr. Buchanan wore plain black suits. That was the order of the previous Secretary of State.
And Mr. Seward, in his benevolence, has left the question of attire up to me. So,
May I point out, Mr. Adams, that the plain black suit worn by Mr. Dallas and Mr. Buchanan was quite similar to Butler's attire, which caused some resentment in court circles, including the Queen, as showing a lack of respect.
and dressing up in this monkey outfit is respectful?
Yes, sir.
And traditional?
Yes, sir.
Well, I personally dislike gaudy dress and ostentatious display. But for the sake of my country, I shall appear before the Queen dressed thusly. There's something amusing, Mary?
No, Father.
Nice leg, Mr. Adams.
Thank you, Mrs. Adams.
Stop that, Mary.
Mr. Adams. A great pleasure, sir.
Thank you, sir. And for me also. I bring the compliments of President Lincoln and Secretary Seward, and my own desire to maintain the best of relationships between our two countries.
Be assured of my very deep commitment to mutual amity and accord, and I hope that we may be able to further an understanding climate for the benefit of our two great nations. Please be seated.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry our first meeting has been so long delayed.
I was informed that this was due to the illness of your brother. I do hope that his health has improved.
It has. I thank you for your concern. Are you established quite comfortably in London?
Oh, we're in the process. I have the good fortune to be accompanied by my wife and 3 of our children.
Should there be anything you need, please do me the favor of calling on me.
Thank you, sir. Lord John, upon landing in Liverpool, I was dismayed by the news of the Queen's proclamation of neutrality concerning my country's relationship with the Confederacy.
Well, it was an action dictated by the circumstances.
Well, I must register my country's objection to that action. Your country's granting of belligerent rights to the Confederacy appears to be precipitate.
Well, it was the result of my country's profound desire to maintain a neutral stand.
There is the fear that it is the forerunner of formal recognition of the independence of the Confederacy by your country.
And that fear is quite unfounded, sir.
Oh, well then, you can assure me that your country has no intention of recognizing the Confederacy.
You speak of a formal recognition?
I do.
Well, at the moment, Her Majesty's government has no intention of a formal recognition.
So, I may take this as a promise that there will be no act of recognition in the future.
In the future? Well, conditions, of course, may change. Attitudes here alter.
So, you are not prepared to make that promise?
No, sir.
Any formal recognition of the rebels would be highly displeasing to my country.
Well, I quite understand, but I'm sorry, Mr. Adams. It would be misleading on my part to commit my country to any future course of action.
I am disappointed. It would be misleading on my part to say otherwise.
Well, I thank you for your directness. And now, if there is anything that I can do to make your stay here more comfortable, please don't hesitate to call on me.
Thank you, sir. And although the interview was conducted on the most friendly terms, the substance, as I've indicated, leaves a cloud over the question of future British neutrality. Do you have all that?
Yes, sir.
Now, how does it sound if you were Seward reading it?
That you had a friendly meeting and that there's an ambivalent attitude on the part of the British government toward our country.
Yes. Not too harsh.
No, sir.
I I feel myself swimming in muddy waters. Do you understand how important this issue of British neutrality really is, Henry?
It goes to the very survival of the Union, sir.
Exactly. If the British recognize the rebels, then the French will, and perhaps even other countries. And the South will be able to get materiel and financial aid and armaments. War will drag on, the fissure deepen, the Union eventually dissolve. I look at Russell, and I realize that he and Palmerston and the British just might destroy our country. And it both angers and frightens me. I must do all I can. I must be strong, but not overbearing. I must be subtle, but not devious. Proud, but not vain. I hope I'm up to it. Is there anything else for my attention this morning?
A letter from Charles.
Oh, good. Read it, will you?
My dear father, a great change has come over my feelings about this war business. And I now feel not only a strong inclination to go off, but a conviction that from many points of view I ought to do it. I am 26 years old and of course have a right to do as I choose. But I acknowledge, as I have done all along, that great regard is due in this matter to you and your feelings, and I shall not go without your consent. But I think you ought to give that consent if under circumstances I ask for it. You will say there is small glory in a civil war, and this is generally true. But in the Civil War in England, or in the Revolution here, what should we now think of a man who, in the hour of greatest dangers, sat at home reading the papers? For years, our family has talked of slavery in the South, and has been most prominent in the contest of words. And now it has come to blows. Does it become us to stand aloof from the conflict? It is not as if I were your only son, though many such have gone. But your family is large, and it seems almost disgraceful that in after years we should have to say that of them all, not one this day stood in arms for that government with which our family history is so closely connected. I earnestly hope for our own credit and that of our name that you will make no objection to my taking a commission and going forth to sustain the government. Would you like to frame a reply?
Not at the moment.
Will you give consent?
What will he gain? Nothing. The experience of leading a company in battle, there's no future profit in that.
Then you're discouraged, Charles.
I shall do nothing. No. I'll neither encourage nor discourage him. Charles will make up his own mind, and I shall accept it. That was an extremely good dinner, Lord Derby.
So glad you enjoyed it.
Well, Mr. Adams, are you quite satisfied with the house that you've taken?
Mrs. Adams is satisfied, Mr. Mills. That has always quite satisfied me.
Very wise. A woman unhappy with her house is like a bird unhappy with its nest. It either leaves or refuses to lay more eggs.
Well, I'm not looking forward to any more eggs or chicks at my age, sir.
I'm sure in these troubled times. You have a son in the army, I understand.
I have two, sir. One already serving, and the other about to take a commission in the cavalry.
Well, that must be a great worry.
It is indeed.
A terrible war, terrible. Everyone in England prays it will be over soon.
But not everyone prays that the Union will survive.
Oh, most of us are in great sympathy with your crusade against slavery. But, Mr. Adams, we're often confounded by your Northern leader's assertion that the main objective of the war is reunion, not abolition.
Well, there can be no abolition without reunion, sir.
Is abolition the main issue of the war?
Abolition is the catalyst, Mr. Lewis. The issue is the preservation of the Union.
Some people here ask, why not allow the South to secede? Why hold a whole section of the country by force.
Secession is another name for rebellion, sir.
Oh, but my dear Mr. Adams, isn't your entire country the result of a rebellion?
Against a government in which we were not permitted to participate.
Ah.
But the states which formed the Confederacy participated on an equal basis with all other states of the United States.
Are you quite certain that the Union can be maintained by force?
There may be temporary setbacks, but the Union will prevail.
Even at the sacrifice of the fight against slavery.
Well, the fight against slavery will continue, sir. It will not be sacrificed.
Well, I'm sure that must please our Foreign Secretary. Quite an anti-slavery champion, our Jack Russell.
Please, Earl Russell now. Yes, it must be strange for him to be elevated to the House of Lords.
Why strange, sir?
Well, the man's a lifelong reformer and advocate of liberty. And suddenly he finds himself secure against the vagaries of the electorate. He doesn't have to go to the people anymore.
Well, I don't know Lord Russell very well, but I have the feeling that he's not a man who shifts with the winds of public opinion.
Oh, I'm sure you're right, Mr. Adams. You do know that there is a large section of this country that actively sympathizes with the Confederacy.
Oh, I do know that, sir. And I'm always interested in the reasons for it.
Well, a great many aristocrats here feel an affinity for your aristocracy of the South. And then, of course, there are business people who see an advantage in dealing directly with an agricultural confederacy without interference from the North.
And there are others who look upon the struggle as one of independence from oppression.
I appreciate the frankness of this discussion, gentlemen. And I realize that you are expressing various aspects of British public opinion, not necessarily your own. So I shall be equally frank with you. The Union will be preserved. The issue of reunion is not open to compromise. Those who offer a compromise or who take any action to strengthen the Confederacy do great damage to the Union. I can only hope that both friends and enemies of the United States understand this.
Things are going quite well for you here, aren't they, Mr. Adams?
So far. But as you know, sir, I rent my house in London only by the month.
There you are, Katie.
Thank you, Katie.
The newspaper, sir.
And?
Very bad. Bull Run was not merely a defeat, it was a rout.
Good Lord, I was hoping
That the preliminary reports were wrong.
that the extent of the tragedy was being exaggerated.
What happened?
Well, the blame is put in various places, but poor training, poor leadership, poor tactics, poor materiel, poor soldiers. Plain fact of the matter is that a large Northern army has been put to rout by a small Southern army. That's what the English press is saying, that's what the English people are reading, and that's what the English government will be discussing. Is there anything else, sir?
No, thank you, Mr. Moran.
Pompous ass.
Yes, but he's quite right. There'll be a sharp reaction in British opinion because of Bull Run. Even if one battle doesn't make a war, people love winners.
Father, I've been writing a letter to Charles.
Oh, good.
I'd like you to hear one paragraph.
Oh, perhaps later, Henry.
Yes, Father.
Read it.
My dear Charles, we've received the news of our defeat at Bull Run. I wish you, on receipt of this, to go to someone in authority and get a commission for me, if you can. No matter what, second, third lieutenant, or ensign, if you can do no better. If you decide ultimately to go in as a captain, I could serve under you. At any rate, I wish to have a commission.
Henry,
Yes, Father.
you've read enough.
I wanted you to know before I sent this letter.
Thank you. I've drafted several paragraphs relating to the blockade aspects of the Declaration of Paris. Would you be so good as to copy them out for me? Joining to them any comments that you may have.
My comments, sir?
Of course. Does that surprise you?
I'm very flattered, sir.
That was not the intention of my request.
Mr. Adams, Mr. Allison is here.
Oh, good. Show him in.
Shall I go?
No, this is Archibald Allison, the historian. I've admired his work for 30 years. He sent me a note requesting an interview.
Your Excellency, may I present Mr. Allison?
Mr. Allison, this is my son, Henry.
How do you do?
How do you do? Well, Mr. Adams, very decent of you to see me.
Not at all, sir. I've read so much of what you've written.
Of course. I won't waste your time, Mr. Adams. I have the solutions for all the problems now besetting your country.
You have?
It's laughably simple. First, the United States must inaugurate a monarchy.
You are Archibald Allison?
No, sir. I'm Alexander Allison.
Oh, I misread your signature.
Never mind, sir. No harm done. As I was saying, the United States must inaugurate a monarchy, establish a national church, and abolish all the states. These three things accomplished immediately will save your country from destruction.
May I ask, who are you?
I am a writer on religion, currency reform, and politics. Now, if you'll be good enough to convey my solutions to Mr. Lincoln...
I appreciate your concern, sir, but your suggestions violate the Constitution of the United States.
Your Constitution brings you nothing but trouble. We English don't have a written Constitution, and we get along very well without one. Take a leaf from our book, sir. You won't survive without a strong monarchy and a strong national church. And after all, what good are states anyway?
Trivialities, routine paperwork, mistaken identities, fustian and nonsense. Sometimes I feel overwhelmed.
How do you manage to keep your temper?
Well, it's my duty to be good-tempered. 20 times a day, I almost stand up and shout, "Out! Ouch, you ridiculous ass!"
I should like to see that.
Well, you won't. I will not be goaded into anger by the arrogant and patronizing attitude taken by so many of the English towards our countrymen. Cabby. And what do they have to be arrogant about? Look around you. What do we see on our daily excursions?
It's a city of great beauty, Father.
Parts of it, yes. But the shops, good Lord, have you ever seen such garish, tasteless examples of extravagance? And right here on this very street, oh, they say that our cities are full of criminality. We have no scenes to rival this. Right in the open, and no attempt to put a stop to it. Do I sound like a Puritan, Henry?
Where to, sir?
Number 5, Upper Portland Place, please.
Thank you. Walk on.
Perhaps we should get out of London for a time. Go out and see the countryside, all of us. By the way, Father, I've decided not to seek a military commission for myself.
Oh?
Well, there's a great deal of work to be done here. I feel I have a duty to stay.
Duty. An exacting mistress, Henry.
There are satisfactions, sir.
Mr. Adams, very good of you to come so quickly.
At your service, sir.
A most alarming incident has taken place. I shall read to you the report that has come to my hands. On the 8th day of November, the British mail packet Trent, while sailing in the Bahama Channel, was intercepted by the United States sloop of war San Jacinto, commanded by a Captain Wilkes. The Trent was fired upon and boarded. Two men, Mason and Slidell, were removed to the San Jacinto.
San Jacinto.
I beg your pardon?
I believe that's San Jacinto, sir. Spanish.
Oh, I'm obliged to you. Mason and Slidell were removed to the San Jacinto and taken back to Boston Harbor. And now imprisoned at Fort Warren. Now, may I ask, does this report confirm your own information?
I have very little to add, Lord Russell. I was in the country when Mr. Moran sent me a dispatch with the facts, similar to those that you've stated. I'm endeavoring to obtain further details.
And a British ship has been boarded by an American sloop of war. Two men have been removed.
The two men, Mason and Slidell, are special commissioners of the Confederacy appointed by Jefferson Davis.
I also understand that your Congress has awarded this pirate Wilkes a gold medal.
Well, there are legal precedents for Wilkes's action, even in recent British maritime activities.
Legalities aside, Mr. Adams, do you realize how the British public will react to this incident?
I think there will be a great furor. I think there will be considerable anger directed at my government.
May I have your explanation of this matter?
At the moment, I'm unable to discuss it.
Oh, why not?
As I said, sir, I have only the bare facts.
Was the interception of the Trent planned by your government?
No plan to that effect was made known to me, sir.
Was Wilkes's action authorized by your government?
Not to my knowledge.
Would you be so good as to make inquiries as to both of those questions?
Of course.
Her Majesty's government will require the restoration of Mason and Slidell to British jurisdiction. It will demand an official apology.
I can only say, sir, that my government will act in an appropriate and honorable manner. Good day, sir.
Mr. Adams.
Yes, sir.
Are you, recently at Monkton Mills country place?
It was there that I received the dispatch concerning the Trents.
You toured the ruins there?
Yes.
Remarkably tedious and undistinguished, aren't they? Had I known you were going, I should have made an effort to warn you.
In future, I should consider you my authority on local ruins. Good day, Lord Russell.
Good day, Mr. Adams.
Now, Katie, I want all Miss Mary's things placed in that large box.
Yes, ma'am.
And Ellen, that box is to be reserved for Mr. Henry's shirts and waistcoats.
May I ask what you are doing?
Packing, sir.
I can see that. Where are you going?
Home? To Boston, sir.
You may go. Both of you. Thank you. Well?
You said last night at table that if Seward kept you in the dark any longer concerning the Trent affair, you might as well be at home.
I was speaking in metaphor.
Well, I shall pack in metaphor. Sir, you are the American minister. Yet you know as much about Seward and Lincoln's plans in the Trent matter as do Katie and Ellen. You do not deserve this humiliation.
Sit idly by day after day. My hands are tied. But I noted in my last dispatch to Seward that I have been placed in an extremely awkward position.
And therefore, the boxes.
I should like nothing better. But we shall stay. We shall stay until I am officially recalled, or until the British government requests my absence.
Many nights I dream of Boston, of the Charles.
Of Charles, did you say?
Of the Charles, the river. Yes, and of our sons, too. I dream of home. I'm not suited for exile.
Nor I, Abby. Nor I. Who's this one?
The Doge Leonardo Loredano by Bellini.
sour-looking old devil, isn't he?
Don't you see the energy there, the strength?
Well, I favor something prettier.
Bellini usually paints those outdoor scenes, lovely skies. That's why this portrait is so remarkable.
Henry, just because you've read the catalog.
Father, you hate these weekly visits, don't you?
Not at all. I consider them a necessary part of our education.
He was elected Doge at age 65 and ruled Venice for 20 years.
I suppose there's a lesson in that for me. Oh, that's more interesting. A king on a horse. Well, it's old King George III. My grandfather tweaked his nose, and he never left the ground.
Mr. Adams, I have a message from Lord Russell. The Foreign Secretary begs your attendance in Whitehall at your earliest possible convenience.
Very well. Thank you.
Thank you.
It seems that I am called by affairs of state.
None too soon. Shall I accompany you?
Oh, no. Since you actually enjoy all this, it would be a pity to tear you away.
I'm sending a dispatch today to Lord Lyons in Washington, indicating my government's acceptance of your government's assurances that Captain Wilkes's assault on the Trent was made without official instructions or foreknowledge. As you know, the prisoners have both been released, which substantially complies with our demands. Her Majesty's government now feels that the unfortunate incident of the Trent is closed.
I am most gratified, sir. I, too, consider the incident unfortunate. I've been most anxious that the Trent affair should not affect the relations between our two governments.
And you have done your best to ease the friction. I know that.
Well, your efforts to maintain a calm atmosphere are appreciated. I only wish I'd been able to be more instrumental in the negotiations.
Well, we are both the servants of our governments, Mr. Adams.
Yes.
And I think we both share a dedication to peace.
Without question, sir.
And I can only hope that nothing arises in the future to disturb the cordial relations between our two governments.
I shall work unceasingly to that end, sir.
A glass of Madeira, Mr. Adams.
With pleasure, Lord Russell.
Oh, there has been talk of a desire on your part to leave your post here.
I plan to remain as long as I can be of use.
Good. Then I look forward to your company for many years. To peace.
To peace.
In the woods near Falmouth, Virginia. My dear Father, I am writing from here to show you I don't forget you while we are at the front. Early Thursday morning, cold and clear, the brigade got into line and began to advance to the front. While we were at the stable, a heavy cannonade opened, and it was clear that work was before someone. It was at first very cold, and our fingers and feet felt it sharply. But as the sun rose, this passed away and the weather moderated. Presently, we came to a large field about 1.5 miles from the point of cannonading, and there the brigade drew up, dismounted, and began to wait. On our left, on a rising ground, was an infantry line of battle. Beyond and above them was a cloud of smoke, and this was all I saw of Thursday's fighting.
What are you eating today? Stew, sir. Try it yourself.
Oh, thank you.
My dear son, here, public matters remain in a profound state of repose, and will probably continue so for another month. The great body of the aristocracy and the wealthy commercial classes are anxious to see the United States go to pieces. On the other hand, the middle and lower classes sympathize with us. All equally see in the convulsions in America an era in the history of the world out of which must come, in the end, a general recognition of the right of mankind to the produce of their labor and the pursuit of happiness. The house in Ealing, in which I spent some of my boyhood, is for sale. We plan a visit shortly.
Stop! You're passing it! Stop! That's it! I'm sure of it.
You said that 3 miles back at that rectory.
Well, this is the house. I'm positive I can recognize the slope of the eaves.
I think you're lost, Father.
Don't criticize your father, Mary.
This is the 4th house we stopped at.
But he hasn't been in Ealing for 45 years.
45 years? I don't think I'd recognize a house in Boston after 10.
Why doesn't he admit he's lost?
Men are never lost, Mary. Disoriented, perhaps, but never lost.
Thank you so much. About a mile farther along, on the right. I always know where I am.
Walk on.
Walk on. All right, everyone. This is it. This is the house. And we have permission to look about. I'm going to keep this. Yes, exactly as I remember. 45 years, but quite the same. But oh, how sadly neglected.
You may go in if you like.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. How long has it been empty?
For many years, madam.
Almost the same. Almost, but smaller, it seems to me. My father's study. Oh, I can almost see him here. Well, go on, look around, explore. That's why we're here.
Henry, let's look for the children's rooms. Perhaps we'll find one of Father's old toys.
When will you grow up, Mary?
Never, I hope.
It's a pleasant place.
Oh, how I'd love to come home here from school on holiday. It was like a charming Garden of Eden compared to the gloom of Dr. Nicholas's establishment. I can remember nothing quite so sunny.
Has there been so much gloom and darkness, Mr. Adams?
My life has not been unhappy, Mrs. Adams.
Oh, I would have preferred a more positive appraisal.
I'm sorry, but when I look about this room, about this house, and I realize that all the persons in that little family are gone now. Father, mother, George, John. Only I survive. I and the 2 servants.
You have your own family now?
And they please me greatly. 45 years, life has rolled away since I was here. The future seemed illimitable then. And now?
And now you are Minister of the United States.
I don't complain.
Sometimes I wish you did.
I shall try to be your obedient servant, madam. Shall we inspect the other rooms?
Of course. I'm glad we came. You really love this place.
I love who I was here. Perhaps that's the same thing.
So, those are the layered rams.
Impressive. Completely ironclad. Correct, Moran?
Ironclad. Practically invulnerable and almost completed.
And there's no question that they're destined for delivery to the Confederacy.
It's an open secret. The Laird shipyard people privately boast about it. It's not official, of course, but no one but the South could have ordered them.
When are they to be launched?
Soon. The middle of August.
Surely the British government won't allow them to leave. They won't risk an incident with the North at this point over 2 gunboats, will they, Father?
I should hope not. But one mustn't make any assumptions about Her Majesty's ministers. Lord Russell and the Foreign Office are subject to strong and various pressures. I think the time has come for me to make myself quite clear concerning the Laird Rams.
The Laird Rams, yes, I was aware of their construction. 2 powerful...
Ironclads.
Mr. Laird himself made a speech in the House recently defending his right to build or outfit vessels for any government or individual.
My government does not accept that principle.
Well, the speech was, as I remember, loudly cheered.
I hope you were not influenced by emotional reactions in Parliament.
I try not to be, but my government, as yours, serves at the will of the people.
Lord Russell, delivery of the Laird rams to the Confederacy could have the most profound influence on the future conduct of the war. Certainly the South would be encouraged. Southern leaders would be led to expect new gunboats from English shipyards and more goods from English factories.
But the war is practically over, sir. Your General Grant has one at Vicksburg. Lee has been checked at Gettysburg. Aren't you making rather too much of these gunboats?
I should like to call to your attention the case of the gunboat Alabama.
Yes, I remember the case of the Alabama.
While the Alabama was under construction, I warned the collector of customs at Liverpool that she was bound for Confederate service.
I know the history of the Alabama.
I went even further and obtained an opinion from Mr. Collier, the judge advocate of the fleet, that the American government would have serious grounds for complaint should the Alabama be permitted to depart.
Perhaps you don't remember, Mr. Adams, but I did try to detain the Alabama at Liverpool.
You were too late, sir.
To my regret.
As a Confederate gunboat, the Alabama has destroyed many Northern ships, and lives have been lost.
So I have been told.
The Laird rams must not be a repetition of the Alabama. The United States would be forced to take action if that occurred.
Action? What kind of action?
We'd be left no alternative but self-protection. We'd be led to using privateers to follow enemy ships, even into British ports, and destroying them.
That would be unthinkable.
I so hope, sir.
In short, then, what is your position?
My government has evidence that the Laird rams are to be devoted to the object of carrying on war against the United States. Their departure from Liverpool would bring about the most serious consequences. Therefore, we ask that Her Majesty's government assure the government of the United States that the Laird rams will be prevented from leaving Liverpool.
I will take your request under advisement.
That is your answer?
My full answer will be forthcoming.
Good day, Lord Russell.
We are daily expecting a movement of some kind, though what we are at a loss to imagine. I look for it with mixed emotions. Our situation is that of a man fighting for his life with one hand tied behind his back. This condition of affairs bears more heavily on the cavalry than on any other arm of the service. We are fairly used up, knocked off our legs. 6 months ago, I commanded 2 companies and had 110 men in the field.
I now command 3 companies and have about 40 effective men, not 20 of whom would be left at the end of 4 days of hard service. And the horses. Such a collection of crow's bait the eye of man never saw. He concludes with love and regards for the whole family, especially for his dear father.
What a wonderful time he's having.
How can you say that? All that hardship and danger.
Young men call it adventure.
Young men are very foolish, then. I'll answer this letter tomorrow so as to catch the next mail packet.
Fine.
It's a lovely day for a walk. Perhaps this afternoon.
You'll have to excuse me, Abby. I'm awaiting a communication from the Foreign Secretary.
For just an hour.
Not today.
Very well, if you excuse me.
You must have more care for your mother's feelings.
All I said was that I envied Charles' military career.
Exactly.
Well, I do.
Just don't do it in front of your mother. Come in.
The note has arrived from the Foreign Secretary, Mr. Adams.
Read it.
Earl Russell to Mr. Adams. Sir, relative to the ironclad vessels in course of construction at Messrs. Laird's yards at Birkenhead, I have now the honor to communicate to you the result of the inquiries which have been instituted. Her Majesty's government is advised that there is insufficient evidence to show that the building and fitting out of these vessels is illegal under the Foreign Enlistment Act. Under these circumstances, Her Majesty's government is advised that it cannot interfere in any way with these vessels. I have the honor to be, with the highest consideration...
That appears quite final.
It would appear so.
So, the ironclads sail from Liverpool, and Britain won't lift a finger.
I wonder how Mr. Seward will react.
We haven't time to wait on Seward. Henry, what's your opinion?
I think the gauntlet's been thrown down.
And you would pick it up?
With pleasure.
Mr. Moran.
It's a dangerous situation.
Yes. Our country's honor is at stake, and it must be maintained in the proper spirit. No delays, no fear, no equivocation. I will not be ruled by unworthy emotions.
I agree. If Britain does not treat us with the proper respect, we'll teach them a lesson.
Yes, we shall send a note to Lord Russell immediately. Henry, take down these thoughts, will you? I shall inform Lord Russell that with the sailing of the Laird rams, Britain can no longer claim neutral status. With the sailing of the rams, Britain takes on the role of a participating belligerent. With the sailing of the rams, conclude the note with the following phrase. It would be superfluous in me to inform your lordship that this is war. Right, you, Charles?
Yes.
I've changed my mind about that walk. It is a beautiful day. And the note from Russell did arrive and has been answered.
Then your mind is clear.
Quite clear. I think you may order the boxes down from the attic tomorrow, Abby.
We're going home.
It would appear so. Well, come, let's not waste the day.
Your Excellency.
Mr. Adams, come in. A glass of Madeira, perhaps?
No, thank you, Lord Russell.
Well, I hesitate to presume on your time, but perhaps you'd like to hear the note that I'm preparing concerning the Laird rams.
Yes, I would, sir.
Well, it begins thus. Lord Russell presents his compliments to Mr. Adams and has the honor to inform him that instructions have been issued which will prevent the departure of the two ironclad vessels from Liverpool.
Prevent their departure?
Yes. The Laird rams have been detained. And I go on here to cite the legal reasons for this detention, most of them quite imperfect, and which will, I'm sure, expose me to both legal and political embarrassment.
But the Laird rams will not sail?
Will not sail. I rather wanted you to hear those words from my lips. Your notes are so impersonal.
I feel great relief, sir. I won't dare venture to claim that I had any part in this decision. I shall ascribe the credit to the Supreme Being.
Yes, that's always safe.
Perhaps we should have that glass now?
A very good idea.
Thank you.
To what shall we drink, Mr. Adams?
To harmony between two great nations, and to a safe harbor for two men who have spent many hours sailing a hazardous course close to the wind.
Katie, be careful of that shawl. It's been in the family 2 generations.
Sorry, madam.
Ellen, fold the silks loosely.
What are you doing?
Packing.
Why?
You said yesterday, take down the boxes.
Oh, we're not going home. There's been a change in the weather.
The weather?
The diplomatic weather. We stay in London.
For how long?
For as long as my country needs me.
What about your family? What about us? Katie, Ellen. Unpack.
5 long years were to pass before Abigail and Charles Francis returned home. Tens of thousands of young men had died for the truth as they saw it. A reunited States was to rise from the destruction of that war. New ideas and ideals and institutions were to come from the devastation. As before, sons of an Adams were to take part in shaping them. The original production of the Adams Chronicles and this special presentation have been made possible by the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation.